This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. We could all use more time. Amazon Business offers smart business buying solutions, so you can spend more time growing your business and less time doing the admin. I can see why they call it smart. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com.
Welcome to From Dorms to Desks, job hunting tips for those early in their careers. A podcast brought to you by College Recruiter job search site, which believes that every student and recent grad deserves a great career, and hosted by Work Defined. Join our AI co-hosts as they dive into tips, tricks, and insights that will help you land your next part-time, seasonal, internship, or entry-level job. Let's get your career started.
Okay, let's unpack this. That familiar, infuriating silence after you've poured hours into an application or maybe even completed a promising interview. You hit apply, you wait, maybe you get that first call, then a Zoom, then another round, and then, well, nothing. Crickets. Yeah. It's that feeling of being completely erased, isn't it?
Yeah.
That confusing, frustrating phenomenon we've all come to know as ghosting in the job search.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, I think, is how deeply this common experience impacts people. It really does. Leaves them wondering, what went wrong? Why did I never hear back?
Exactly.
It's a silence that speaks volumes, and usually it's screaming questions, not answers. So our mission with this deep dive is really to peel back the layers of this pervasive issue. We're drawing directly from real-world experiences and insights shared by both candidates and recruiters.
Okay.
We've got a real treasure trove of candid perspectives, mostly from a Reddit thread where job seekers just poured out their frustrations. And crucially, recruiters offered their blunt, sometimes controversial explanations.
Okay. So we get both sides.
We do. And plus we'll touch on some other insights into application strategies that might, help you navigate this often opaque maze.
Good. So let's start with the human side of this. The candidate's cry, if you will. One of the most common and frankly enraging experiences is what we're calling the unsolicited outreach trap.
Right.
Imagine this scenario. You're not even actively looking, maybe, but a recruiter finds you. They reach out, often with a message saying you're a good candidate or even perfect for another role.
They've targeted you.
Exactly. They've done their homework, found you specifically. Yeah. Then they have you go through this whole big song and dance, right? Filling out forms, tailoring your resume, sometimes multiple rounds of interviews. You invest your time, your hopes.
A lot of effort goes into that.
A lot of effort. And then, poof, they disappear. Just like that.
It's a profound feeling of betrayal, isn't it? I mean, as one person put it so well, if they have time to find me and contact me and I have time to fill out their stuff, they should have time to get back to me.
Such a simple point, but so true.
It really encapsulates so much of the frustration. We heard stories, where candidates had genuinely great Zoom interviews, felt real interest from the other side. The conversation flowed. They felt connected.
Yeah, you get your hopes up.
Totally. And still, after diligently sending follow-up emails, they got absolutely nothing back. Not even an automated thanks, but no thanks. Just silence.
Oh, wow. And it gets worse, apparently. One particularly painful anecdote involved a candidate who wasn't just ghosted once, but twice.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They were initially told they weren't a fit for the first role, but then, in what seemed like a glimmer of hope, were told they were perfect for another role.
Okay, so a potential pivot.
Right. So they went through an entirely second interview process for that new opportunity, only to be ghosted again.
Oh, that's just awful. That's a double whammy of disappointment.
It really is. And it feels like a clear indicator of a communication chain that isn't just broken, but maybe never really existed in the first place, for the candidate.
It speaks to a systemic issue, I think, where that initial outreach isn't always followed by a commitment to closure. It's almost like a bait and switch, even if it's inadvertent sometimes.
Right.
And it's not just the unsolicited outreach that gets people. What truly compounds the frustration is the sheer investment of time and emotion involved in the job search process itself.
Yeah.
We're not talking about just a quick click of a button here. People are spending many hours of time on calls, on meticulously crafting applications, and even enduring things like 4 rounds of interviews and a SWOT project.
A SWOT project. Okay. Let's pause there. For anyone unfamiliar, a SWOT analysis, it's like a strategic planning tool looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats for a company or project.
Significant work.
It's huge. Being asked to complete one as part of an interview process is a major time-consuming ask. It's not just a few minutes filling out a form. It signifies deep engagement. You're demonstrating analytical skills, commitment.
You're essentially doing free consulting work in some cases.
Pretty much. So to invest that kind of intellectual and temporal energy only to be met with silence, that must be incredibly disheartening.
You're absolutely right to highlight that investment. The emotional toll is just palpable in the feedback we gathered. Phrases like absolutely infuriating and it just hurts how insignificant our feelings are, they crop up repeatedly.
Yeah.
Underscoring that profound feeling of being dismissed. And there's this deep human desire for closure. As one comment starkly highlighted, I don't know one single person who would rather be ghosted indefinitely than receive bad news immediately.
That nails
It perfectly captures the massive disconnect between what candidates need, which is clarity, even if it's negative news, and what they often receive, which is nothing.
And the irony isn't lost on anyone, is it? There's this double standard argument that kept coming up again and again.
Oh, yeah.
Candidates are routinely deemed unprofessional. If they ghost employers, say, you accept another offer and just disappear from the interview process for another company, that's frowned upon.
Big time. You could get blacklisted.
Right. But recruiters seem to do it as standard practice, often with zero repercussions whatsoever. It's a striking imbalance that feeds into a deep sense of injustice.
Precisely. And that double standard, it really fuels the cynicism we saw expressed in the sources. It leads to some pretty harsh calls for accountability.
I bet.
We're talking about comments expressing extreme frustration, like recruiters being accused of not caring unless you are their cash cow, or in some very blunt language, being called out for a lack of courage, or just being labeled lazy or plain scumbags.
Wow, okay. Strong words.
It's visceral. It really is. There's even this grim prediction that if AI were to replace recruiters, it would be programmed by the same knobs, implying the core problem is deeply embedded in the mindset of the industry itself.
That sentiment is undeniably strong. The perception that recruiters waste your time and lie to you is a standard practice and only care about money, the next fee. It paints a picture of a transaction that's completely one-sided, where the candidate's time and emotional energy are just expendable commodities. It's raw frustration, but it also raises a deeper question, I think, about the underlying motivations and ethics in the recruitment industry.
Indeed. When candidates feel their time and effort are so easily dismissed, it inevitably leads to a demand for accountability. People are left asking, how else do we hold them accountable?
Right. What can you even do?
Exactly. And this isn't just venting. It's a call for a fundamental shift in how the hiring process values the human element, especially given this perceived profit motive that seems to override basic professional courtesy and communication. It suggests that if there aren't consequences, well, the behavior will just persist.
Okay, so we've heard the raw, often heartbreaking frustration from the candidate's perspective. It's pretty clear. Now, as promised, let's flip the script a bit. What if there's more to this silence than just indifference? What if, on the other side, recruiters are facing pressures and constraints that most job seekers, can't even imagine?
That's the other side of the coin we need to look at.
Yeah. Our sources reveal some surprising and sometimes equally frustrating realities from inside the recruiter's world. Let's try and peel back those layers and explore the whys behind the ghosting phenomenon.
Okay, so you might think recruiters are just ignoring you, but what if I told you the sheer volume of applications they face is almost unimaginable? This is one of the most frequently cited arguments for ghosting. Simply overwhelm, sheer volume, and capacity issues.
Okay.
Recruiters often face hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants for a single role. Can you just picture wading through that kind of digital deluge every single day?
It sounds immense, but let's try and put some numbers to that. Because our sources provided a startling glimpse into a recruiter's daily grind. One recruiter shared a detailed breakdown.
Yeah, that was eye-opening.
It really was. Handling 10 jobs concurrently, which wasn't just a few emails, right? It meant at least 40 interviews with hiring managers, probably 500 phone interviews I did myself, 1,000 calls to gauge interest, and 1,500 applications.
Just think about those numbers. 500 phone interviews, 1,000 calls, 1,500 applications for 10 jobs.
It's staggering. Even if each phone call is only, say, 5 minutes, that's already over 40 hours of just talking on the phone for one set of roles. That's a full work week, let alone all the other tasks involved.
It's a huge volume to manage manually, truly. And to illustrate the prioritization that's kind of forced upon them by this workload, One recruiter used this poignant plant watering analogy.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
They said, you have 500 plants, only enough time to water 200 of them. Only 50 of them actually produce fruit.
Ah, okay. I see where this is going.
Right. The logic is recruiters have to prioritize the fruit-producing candidates, the ones most likely to actually fill the role and generate a placement, the fruit. The others, unfortunately, are left to wither, not out of malice necessarily, but out of sheer capacity limitations.
Okay, so it's a resource allocation problem, basically.
That's a big part of the argument, yeah. And the argument here is that sending mass rejection emails, while it seems like a simple courtesy, can actually exacerbate the problem for them.
Finish training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
How so? How does sending a rejection make it worse?
Well, the fear is it leads to a deluge of follow-up calls and messages from rejected candidate. People wanting more feedback, asking why, trying to argue their case.
Ah, okay. Creates more work.
Exactly. It creates a whole new wave of administrative tasks that recruiters say they simply don't have the time or resources for. The simple truth for some, as one admitted quite bluntly, is we are super busy and there is zero value in rejecting someone from their perspective in terms of their immediate workflow.
That direct honesty is rare but incredibly insightful, isn't it?
It really is. It tells us it's not always some grand, malevolent strategy. Sometimes it's just human fallibility or a calculated time management decision made under immense pressure.
Right.
But beyond the individual workload, there's another really significant factor many candidates don't see, the hiring manager bottleneck.
Okay, what's that?
Recruiters themselves often deal with a lot of ambiguity in the process and, crucially, are often not a decision maker. They're dependent on the hiring managers.
The person who actually needs the role filled.
Exactly. And those hiring managers frequently don't get back to us either, or they provide frustratingly vague feedback, like, put that one in the maybe pile.
Oh, the maybe pile, the black hole.
Precisely. So it becomes this frustrating game of, as someone put it, tail chasing, hiring managers for feedback, or even just for their availability for interviews.
So the recruiter is stuck in the middle.
They're essentially stuck in limbo, unable to disposition candidates, unable to give you an update because they haven't received clear direction themselves. It's like being the middle person, waiting for a message that just never arrives.
That must be incredibly frustrating for the recruiter too, actually.
Oh, absolutely. One recruiter bluntly stated, more than 50% of the issues come from managers who are indecisive, unorganized, or just bad at their jobs.
Wow. That's a pretty damning indictment of internal company processes, isn't it?
It really is. And this highlights a crucial power dynamic within organizations. Management does not report to HR,
right?
Meaning recruiters often have no coercive power to enforce hiring process expectations, even if they have strong opinions on candidate experience themselves.
Well, they can suggest best practices, but they can't force the manager to respond promptly.
Exactly. Unless a company has senior leaders that value the input of HR and empower them to own the hiring process, effective communication and efficient hiring often just break down. The recruiter, in many cases, becomes the messenger who simply doesn't have the message.
Because their own customer, the hiring manager, hasn't provided it.
Right. It's a systemic issue, often, not just an individual recruiter's choice. And it leaves everyone, candidate and recruiter, in a frustrating holding pattern.
Okay, so workload, hiring manager bottlenecks. What else? And if that wasn't enough, we've got the tech tango.
Ah, yes, the technology.
Specifically, the limitations of what's called an ATS, or applicant tracking system. Think of it as the software recruiters use to manage applications. It's often the first hurdle your resume has to clear.
Yeah, the dreaded ATS.
You'd think with all these supposedly sophisticated systems, automation would be solving some of these communication issues, right? But our sources reveal a fascinating and frankly quite crude reality. These systems are described in surprisingly blunt terms like, well, one person said they suck dick.
Yeah, the language was strong.
And another said they're barely a step above spreadsheets in functionality. Why is the tech falling so short here?
Well, that's a key point, and it's apparently a real mess behind the scenes. Communication isn't centralized. It's spread over dozens of platforms.
Dozens? Like what?
The ATS itself, Outlook for email, LinkedIn messaging, various job boards, direct phone calls, even text messages sometimes.
Wow. Okay, that sounds chaotic.
It is. This fragmentation makes it incredibly difficult for a recruiter to keep track of every single candidate's status across so many channels, especially when they're managing those thousands of applications we just talked about.
Right. Things fall through the cracks.
Easily. And while automatic rejection emails do exist in these systems, they are usually a system-level implementation. It's not something individual recruiters directly control or can easily trigger for specific groups or situations.
So, even if a recruiter wanted to send a blanket rejection to everyone who didn't make the first cut, the system might not easily allow it without potentially causing other problems.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
And there are concerns with full automation too, apparently. Recruiters mention that people can click buttons by accident, potentially sending an erroneous rejection.
Well, you wouldn't want that. No.
Or candidates might be moved to other potential positions before a formal rejection from a closed one is sent out. So a blanket auto-reject could be premature, problematic if they're trying to keep potentially good candidates warm for other roles.
Okay, so it's not as simple as just flicking a switch.
Not always. And here's the kicker, the real sort of strategic insight that came out. ATS companies don't see ATS companies improving this for the candidate because candidates aren't the ones paying them.
The customer is the company, the employer.
Exactly. The customer is the company and the recruiter, not the job seeker. So the financial incentive to create a seamless, transparent candidate experience from the tech side simply isn't the top priority.
Makes sense, unfortunately.
Yeah. So it makes managing thousands of contacts without truly effective candidate-centric tools a Herculean task for the recruiters.
Okay, this leads us to another significant why, and maybe one that generates the most cynicism. The idea of strategic silence.
Right. This is where it gets a bit more calculated.
Recruiters openly admitted, according to our sources, they like to keep people on the back burner in case their first choice doesn't work out.
Hedging their bets.
This means delaying any rejection or just sending none at all until the chosen candidate has actually signed the offer and is completely onboarded, maybe even started.
It's a calculated, risk-averse move from their perspective. I mean, the explicit benefit is clear. If you've got a decent candidate on the bench, that saves you a few weeks of rebooting the search process if your first choice falls through for some reason.
So the ghosting, in a way, is a contingency plan, keeping options open.
That's one part of the strategic silence. But there's also another side to it. The desire to avoid delivering bad news.
Ah, okay. Conflict avoidance.
Pretty much. Some recruiters recount past experiences where conversations turn from professional to combative to outright hostile after rejecting a candidate.
Really? Hostile?
Yeah. People get upset, understandably sometimes, but apparently it can escalate. Recruiters mentioned experiences with people who have been fired who end up going back to the company, threatening or even practicing violence on staff.
Wow, okay, that's extreme, but surely that's rare.
One would hope it's extremely rare. And some argue this fear is sometimes made-up justification or that a few crazies should not affect integrity. They argue you shouldn't penalize the 99% for the actions of a tiny minority.
That seems fair.
But the perception exists for some recruiters, whether it's based on direct experience or just stories they've heard, and it influences their behavior. They just want to avoid that potential confrontation.
So it's not just about keeping options open. There's a genuine fear for some of negative reactions.
From a purely cynical standpoint, as one recruiter put it very bluntly, there's no benefit to taking time out of your day to call a candidate and tell them they didn't get a job because the candidate will react emotionally and take it out on the recruiter.
That's a pretty bleak outlook.
It is. And this creates a perceived advantage for the recruiter. If I did less work, not tell you anything, I am in a better spot to potentially come back to a second choice candidate later without having to re-engage with someone they've already rejected and potentially upset.
So the path of least resistance is silence.
For some, yes. The silent treatment, the idea that no response is a rejection, is simply seen as a clear enough signal. It shifts the burden of understanding and, frankly, the emotional processing entirely onto the candidate.
Okay. Wow. So we've heard the candidate's raw pain, the feeling of being dismissed, and we've heard the multifaceted explanations from the recruiter's side, sheer workload, systemic issues like hiring managers and tech, and these calculated strategic silences.
It's a complex picture.
It really is. Now, let's talk about the hard truths and the ethical dilemmas that kind of emerge from this dynamic. First, that stark accusation we heard earlier.
Yeah.
The lack of care and the pervasive profit motive.
Yeah, that came up a lot.
The assertion that the only reason a rejection email isn't sent out is because they can't be bothered and they do not care about the candidate.
It's a harsh, but as you said, frequently expressed sentiment. It really cuts to the core of the issue for many candidates. They believe recruiters only care about money, the next fee.
And the logic follows. Sending a rejection doesn't make them money.
Right. Sending out a rejection email makes them nothing, therefore they rarely do it. This view frames ghosting as a symptom of a lack of respect and lack of consequences. It suggests that if there were financial or professional repercussions for poor candidate experience, the behavior would fundamentally change.
It forces us to confront whether the system prioritizes profit over people, or at least over basic courtesy.
Leading a growing business, it's like building a plane while flying it. Team building, decision-making, and scaling all at once. At CPO Playbook, we get it. That's why our podcast, ranked in the top 10% worldwide, tackles the toughest leadership challenges with insights to help you lead smarter and grow faster. Tune into the CPO Playbook podcast because leadership doesn't come with a manual, but we're pretty close.
Absolutely. And this ties directly into the employer's broader role and their brand reputation. The idea that companies actually don't care about job seekers. They want the best candidate at the lowest pay.
Implying candidate experience is secondary.
Exactly. It suggests a fundamental misalignment of values where the candidate experience is just not a priority compared to cost cutting and speed. It really puts the onus back on the companies themselves, not just the individual recruiters.
So for better recruiter practices, the candidate experience needs to be genuinely valued by leadership.
Yes. Prioritized by the company's senior leadership, not just a vague idea in an HR handbook. Otherwise, it remains a low-priority task for recruiters juggling all those other demands.
And what about the counter-argument to that fear of hostility we discussed?
Right. The point that a few crazies should not affect integrity, and that such fears are sometimes made-up justification. This really questions whether the excuses are truly valid, or maybe just convenient rationalizations for poor practice. It suggests a degree of moral disengagement, perhaps.
Interesting. Okay, speaking of ethics, there's a strong argument that ghosting might actually violate legal and ethical frameworks. Specifically, GDPR came up. That's the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe.
Right, the data privacy angle.
This isn't just about good manners. Some argue that GDPR requires companies to inform individuals about how their personal data, like your CV, your application details, is being processed and where it's being shared. And that includes your application status.
So the argument is, if your data is sitting in their system being processed for a job application, they have a legal obligation under GDPR to tell you what's happening with it.
That's the claim. Under GDPR, recruiters allegedly need to tell candidates where they have past shared their detailed CV and at what stage it is at. This implies a legal mandate for transparency throughout the process, not just a professional courtesy.
That's a powerful argument. Did anyone mention enforcement?
Some even suggested the potential for candidates to sue them for not correctly storing and processing your personal information. Though, the practicalities of actually doing that might be complex and costly for an individual job seeker.
Sure, but the principle is there. And beyond the legal aspect, there's a powerful ethical responsibility, right? Recruiters need to realize that they are dealing with human beings' livelihoods.
Absolutely. It's a call for companies to remember the human behind every application, and also to avoid practices like posting ghost jobs that don't actually exist, or maybe they're just fishing for resumes, or the hiring manager is perpetually indecisive.
Yeah, those are incredibly frustrating too, wasting even more candidate time.
And the karma aspect of this, it's almost poetic in a dark sort of way. We saw observations from people noticing recruiters who got laid off.
Right, the tables turned.
Yeah. Recruiters who were laid off suddenly talking about being ghosted and how much they hate recruiters, despite having ghosted candidates themselves when they were employed.
Oof, that's a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? To experience the very thing you perhaps inflicted upon others.
It really highlights a striking contradiction and maybe, a painful lack of empathy until you're on the receiving end.
It's a vivid reminder that the system impacts everyone eventually. There's also that internal conflict expressed by some recruiters who were told by their superiors not to contact them at all, even after phone interviews.
So it wasn't always their choice.
Exactly. This reveals a moral discomfort with the practice among some people actually doing the work. It indicates that not all ghosting is a recruiter's personal preference, but sometimes it's a directive from above, which makes it even more complicated to just blame the recruiter.
Right. It points back to company culture and management. Okay. So with all this laid out, the frustration, the explanations, the ethical questions, the systemic issues, how can you, the job seeker listening right now, actually navigate this frustrating landscape? What strategies can empower candidates when the system feels so stacked against them?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? How do you cope?
Yeah.
Well, one piece of advice that comes up repeatedly is about managing expectations and mindset. Basically developing resilience. Some put it bluntly, not give a F and keep applying until you get offers.
Just detach emotionally.
To some extent, yes. The thinking is, as long as the application is still alive, there's still a tiny hope of a callback at zero cost to you. This encourages a more detached approach, urging you to avoid emotional overinvestment in any single application. Just keep moving.
Fire and forget, almost.
Kind of. And it also comes with a hard truth from the recruiter side. If an offer isn't made within a day or two of the last interview, you're likely the second or third choice, or maybe not chosen at all.
Ouch. That's quick.
It can be. So while hope might linger, don't hold your breath for too long. Keep applying. Keep moving on mentally.
Okay. This leads into proactive strategic communication, right? But with caveats.
Exactly. The general advice is always follow up with the recruiter. Let them know you want to know the status regardless of the outcome. Show you're engaged, but also want closure.
And point out how easy it could be for them. As one person said, a simple email like, I'm sorry, but you're no longer being considered for this role and unfortunately cannot provide any more information at this time, takes what, 15 seconds to write and send?
Right. You can highlight that ease. So you can do your part, follow up professionally, but, and this is a big caveat, understand the limitations.
Yeah.
Even strong, polite follow-ups sometimes yield absolutely no response. We saw examples where candidates eventually just withdrew their applications because the lack of response felt like a fundamental lack of respect.
So you can be proactive, but the ball is often still firmly in the recruiter's court or the hiring manager's court or lost somewhere in the system.
Pretty much. Which brings us to a critical, often overlooked point that our sources hinted at. Resume rescue strategies.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
While this particular deep dive didn't get into the real nitty-gritty of exactly what specific keywords or formats to use on your resume, perhaps a topic for another time, the core insight here is profound.
One.
The principle is that seemingly small adjustments to your resume or your application can significantly increase your chances of being seen and acted on by a recruiter or an ATS.
So optimizing for the system.
Exactly. Think about it. Optimizing keywords for those ATS systems we talked about, making sure your formatting is super clear and easy for a human to scan quickly. These things can make a huge difference.
So it means that sometimes, if you're not hearing back, the scaring them off isn't personal. It's not about you. It's about how the application is presented.
Precisely. It could be about how easily your application fits into their system, or how quickly it communicates your key qualifications to a busy human eye. And understanding this opens up a pathway for candidates to feel empowered.
Right. You can't control if they ghost, but you can control how you present yourself.
Exactly. You can refine your approach, focus on what you can control in a challenging environment, rather than feeling completely at the mercy of a silent system.
Okay, that's a really valuable point. Now, what about reciprocating? There's this rising trend, apparently, of candidates ghosting recruiters back.
Yes, the turnabout. This leads to an interesting and somewhat contentious debate that came up in the sources.
How so?
Well, on one hand, some subscribe to the eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind philosophy. They argue that candidates ghosting back just perpetuates the problem, makes the whole ecosystem worse.
Don't stoop to their level.
Right. But on the other hand, there's the pragmatic, maybe slightly cynical view. Enjoy it while employed with health insurance. Meaning, if the system is inherently unfair and disrespectful towards candidates, maybe you should play by its unspoken rules when it benefits you, like if you get multiple offers and just drop communication with the others. It's seen as a direct response to the perceived power imbalance and a clear sign of increasing candidate frustration.
It's like, if they don't respect my time, why should I go out of my way to respect theirs?
That's the sentiment, yeah. Use with caution, perhaps, but it's definitely happening.
Okay. So after exploring all this, the problems, the excuses, the strategies, what does good practice actually look like? It's not all doom and gloom, right? Our deep dive also illuminated what good practice actually looks like. And crucially, that it's not some mythical, impossible behavior.
Absolutely not. There's a clear call for change, and it often starts with the simplicity of communication. People reiterate it over and over. It is easy to send automatic rejection emails. It's not a technological impossibility in most cases.
Right, the tech exists.
Exactly. The argument is that ATS systems can be configured for automatic rejections or status updates if companies genuinely prioritize it. It's about setting up a boilerplate email. Something simple like, "Thank you for your application. While your experience was impressive, we've moved forward with other candidates for this role. We wish you the best."
Takes minimal effort once set up.
Minimal effort. Or even implementing a simple dead man switch type functionality. If an application hasn't been moved forward by a certain date, an automatic update goes out. Making this standard would provide basic courtesy without a huge time investment for the recruiter.
So it points to an investment choice and a company commitment to candidate experience rather than a fundamental technical limitation.
Largely, yes. And then there are specific recruiters' best practices that good recruiters already follow. The consensus is that good recruiters will do this. They will follow up, especially with candidates they've actually interviewed.
It's not a rare unicorn of behavior. It should be expected professionalism.
Precisely. It's about professional conduct and basic respect. Good recruiters understand the importance of having, say, an email template for different situations. Pending decision, another interview is required, and rejection.
So they can be efficient but still communicate.
Right. This allows for efficiency while maintaining communication. It's the basic ethos of treating candidates the way you'd want to be treated if you were in their shoes, and using the available automation platforms smartly to ensure candidates aren't just left hanging indefinitely.
It's not about being overly touchy-feely. It's about efficient, respectful communication that ultimately benefits the company's reputation and their long-term talent pipeline, too.
You got it. Which leads to the final point. What's truly needed is systemic change.
Yeah. It's not just about individual recruiters tweaking their habits or a slightly better ATS feature.
No. There's a clear need for companies to actually invest in something that delivers on the candidate experience. This has to be a top-down mandate originating from the highest levels of leadership. They have to decide it matters.
So senior leadership needs to empower HR.
Yes, genuinely empower HR and, crucially, hold hiring managers accountable for their part in the process, for providing timely feedback, for showing up to interviews, for making decisions.
Makes sense.
It's also a plea for ATS systems to maybe create better portal systems for candidates to log back into the system to check application statuses. Imagine being able to track your application progress as easily as you track a package you ordered online.
That would be amazing. Transparency.
Wouldn't it? Ultimately, it's about the collective need for recruiters and companies to remember the human behind every single application, to acknowledge their time, their effort, their emotional investment in the process.
It's a shift from a purely transactional view to one that recognizes the human capital involved.
Exactly.
So, wrapping this up then, if you've been ghosted, and let's be honest, most people looking for jobs probably have been at some point, this deep dive hopefully offers a crucial shift in perspective. It's almost never actually about you personally.
That's a key takeaway.
We've seen the immense frustration from candidates, that feeling of betrayal and insignificance. And we've also heard the multifaceted, though, let's be clear, not always excusable reasons recruiters provide. Everything from overwhelming volume to those hiring manager bottlenecks, tech limitations, and even sometimes that strategic silence.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, this deep dive really shows us that ghosting is rarely about you as an individual candidate. It's much more often a symptom of systemic pressures, technological limitations, and sometimes, a simple lack of empathy or accountability baked into the hiring process itself.
Understanding that isn't just academic. It can maybe help you navigate your job search and protect your own energy a bit better.
Absolutely. And it raises an important question for all of us, I think. In a world where every interaction matters, especially online, what is the true cost of this widespread silence? Not just for the individuals who feel dismissed, but for company brands, for their ability to attract talent in the future, and maybe for the future of work itself.
That's a big question.
It is. How can we, as a collective candidates, recruiters, companies, tech providers, push for a hiring experience that genuinely prioritizes transparency and respect? How do we move beyond these current frustrations towards something more, well, more human-centered?
Something to think about.
Story.
Definitely leaves you wondering what it takes to make that shift happen.
This has been From Dorms to Desks, job hunting tips for those early in their careers. A podcast brought to you by College Recruiter job search site, which believes that every student and recent grad deserves a great career. Each episode, we dive into tips, tricks, and insights that will help you land your next part-time, seasonal, internship, or entry-level job. Subscribe to this podcast for free now, so you don't miss an episode, and visit www.collegerecruiter.com to find your next great job.
You know the words dominating today's headlines.
Private equity,
generative capital gains tax,
America's
fueled by market volatility, bets on Fed rate cuts.
But do you understand how they impact your world and your wallet? In a world that skims the what, understand the why. Because context changes everything. Subscribe at Bloomberg.com.
Every minute your finance team spends wrestling with data is a minute lost. Insight Software's AI-powered insights instantly move you from complexity to clarity. Automated analysis, real-time reporting, strategic recommendations, all at your fingertips. Transform how your finance team works and watch your business grow. Stop wasting time. Start making smarter decisions. Learn more at insightsoftware.com/AI.